The cold morning spread quietly across the wide land. Snow covered the ground like a soft white sheet. The sky looked pale, and the sun appeared weak behind thin clouds. A small wooden cabin stood near a frozen stream. Smoke slowly rose from its chimney. Inside that cabin lived a cowboy named Tom. Tom lived alone. He had simple habits and a calm nature. Every morning, he woke early, checked his horse, and prepared for the day. Winter was his least favorite season, but he respected it. He knew the land could be kind or cruel, depending on how a person treated it. Christmas was near. The days felt shorter, and the nights felt longer. Tom planned to go hunting before the holiday. He wanted enough food to last through the cold days. He packed his bag carefully with bread, dried meat, and a small water bottle. He wore a thick coat and strong boots. Before leaving, he placed a small wooden star above his cabin door, a quiet sign of Christmas hope. Tom saddled his horse Ben and rode out into the open land. The snow made the world quiet. Every sound felt clear and sharp. Ben moved steadily, used to the cold and the rough ground. Tom kept his eyes open, watching for animal tracks. He had hunted many times before, but this day felt different in a way he could not explain. After some time, Tom noticed footprints in the snow. They were not from any animal. They were human footprints, small and light. He stopped his horse and looked around carefully. Few people traveled this far during winter. The cold was dangerous, and storms could appear without warning. Tom followed the footprints slowly. He did not rush. He believed the land deserved respect. The tracks led toward a group of trees near a low hill. As he came closer, he saw a small camp. A weak fire burned low, almost gone. Beside it sat a woman wrapped in a thin blanket. She stood up when she saw Tom. Her posture was strong, even though she looked tired. Her dark hair was tied back and her eyes were watchful. She did not show fear, but she did not show trust either. Tom stopped a few steps away and raised his hands to show he meant no harm. He spoke calmly and said he was a hunter from nearby land. He said he had seen her tracks and wanted to be sure she was safe. The woman listened carefully. Her voice was steady when she spoke. She said her name was Asha. She said she was Apache and had been traveling alone after losing contact with her people during a long journey. The wind picked up, blowing snow across the ground. Tom could see that Asha was cold. Her blanket was worn, and her hands were red from the frost. He felt concern rise in his chest. Winter showed no mercy to those unprepared. Tom offered her food from his bag. He placed it gently on a rock and stepped back. Asha watched him closely before taking it. She nodded slightly in thanks. She ate slowly, as if saving her strength. Tom pointed toward his cabin in the distance. He explained that it was warm and had food and firewood. He said she could rest there until the weather improved. He did not step closer. He waited for her answer. Asha looked at the sky, then at the trees, and finally at Tom. Her eyes showed thought, not fear. After a moment, she spoke words that stayed in Tom's mind. "Do not rush," she said. "The land teaches patience." Tom nodded. He understood her words. He did not push or argue. He waited quietly, giving her space to decide. After a long silence, Asha gathered her few belongings and stood beside him. Still keeping some distance, they traveled slowly back toward the cabin. The snow fell gently around them. Ben moved at an easy pace. Tom walked beside the horse so Asha would not feel alone. They did not talk much, but the silence felt calm, not heavy. When they reached the cabin, Tom opened the door and stepped aside. Warm air flowed out, carrying the smell of burning wood. Asha paused before entering. She looked around, studying everything carefully. Then she stepped inside. Tom added wood to the fire and poured hot water into a metal cup. He offered it to Asha. She accepted it with care and warmed her hands. The firelight softened her tired face. Her shoulders relaxed slightly, though her eyes stayed alert. They sat on opposite sides of the small room. Outside, the wind howled, but inside there was warmth and safety. Tom shared bread and soup. Asha ate slowly, showing respect for the food. Tom thought about how his day had changed. He had left to hunt for Christmas, expecting nothing more than a long ride and a quiet return. Instead, he had met someone whose path had crossed his in an unexpected way as night fell. The cabin glowed softly against the snow. Neither Tom nor Asha spoke much, but both felt that this meeting was not an accident. The land had brought them together for a reason not yet clear. Christmas was close, and with it came change. The quiet cabin now held two lives instead of one. Outside, the winter watched patiently as a new story began to take shape. Morning arrived slowly at the cabin. Pale light slipped through the small window and touched the wooden floor. The fire had burned low during the night, leaving only soft warmth in the room. Tom woke first. He listened to the wind outside and the quiet inside. For a moment, he forgot that he was not alone. Then he saw Asha sitting near the window. She was awake, watching the land beyond the glass. Her posture was calm and steady. She looked like someone who stayed alert even while resting. Tom moved slowly so he would not surprise her. He added wood to the fire and prepared simple breakfast. He warmed water, cut bread, and placed dried meat on a small plate. The smell of food filled the cabin. Asha turned her head and nodded in thanks. She joined him at the table, keeping a respectful distance. They ate quietly. The silence did not feel uncomfortable. It felt thoughtful. Outside, snow continued to fall lightly, covering old tracks and making the world new again. After breakfast, Tom spoke about the land. He explained how winter storms could last for days. He said it was safer to stay inside until the sky cleared. Asha listened carefully. She said she understood the danger of winter and respected the strength of the land. She shared part of her journey. She spoke of traveling with her people before a sudden storm caused them to scatter. She had followed the river, believing it would guide her, but the cold slowed her steps. She did not sound angry or afraid. Her words carried acceptance and patience. Tom felt respect for her strength. He had lived on this land for years, yet he knew winter could still break even strong people. He realized Asha had survived not only with skill but also with calm spirit. Later that morning, Tom went outside to check the area. He cleared snow near the door and checked his supplies. Asha watched from inside at first. After some time, she stepped out as well. She moved carefully, observing everything around her. She studied the trees, the hills, and the frozen stream. She touched the snow and felt the wind. Tom noticed how she connected with the land, not as something to control but as something to understand. Asha pointed toward the sky and mentioned signs of weather change. She said the wind would grow stronger by night. Tom listened closely. He had learned signs too, but her words added new meaning. He realized they both learned from the same land in different ways. They spent the day preparing. Tom gathered extra firewood. Asha helped organize supplies inside the cabin. She worked quietly but with purpose. She did not act like a guest. She acted like someone who shared responsibility. As the day passed, they spoke more. They talked about simple things. Tom spoke about his life as a cowboy and how he came to live alone. Asha spoke about her people and the lessons taught by elders. Their words were careful and respectful. When afternoon arrived, the sky darkened. The wind grew louder. Snow began to fall faster. Tom closed the shutters and secured the door. The cabin felt small but safe. Inside, Asha sat near the fire and worked with her hands, fixing a torn strap from her bag. Tom watched her skill and focus. He realized she carried knowledge shaped by many seasons just like him. As evening came, Tom prepared soup. He added herbs and vegetables he had stored. The warm meal brought comfort. They ate together again, sharing silence and warmth after dinner. Asha spoke softly. She thanked Tom for his kindness. She said help given without pressure carried true value. Tom replied that the land taught him to help when he could. He believed survival was not meant to be faced alone. The storm outside grew strong. Wind pushed against the cabin walls. Snow hit the roof in steady rhythm. Inside, the fire burned bright. Shadows danced along the walls. Asha stood and looked at the door. She said storms reminded her that patience was not weakness. It was strength. Tom listened and felt the truth in her words. That night, Tom prepared a resting space for Asha near the fire while he slept closer to the door. He wanted her to feel safe. She accepted without hesitation. As they rested, the storm continued its song. The cabin stood firm against the wind. Two lives rested under one roof, brought together by chance and choice. Tom lay awake for a while, thinking about Christmas and how different this season felt. He had expected solitude. Instead, he found shared warmth and quiet understanding. Asha also stayed awake, listening to the land. She felt that her path had changed, but not without purpose. She trusted that the land guided steps for a reason. Outside, the storm slowly passed. Snow settled deep across the land. Inside the cabin, a bond began to form, built not on rush or fear, but on patience and respect. The winter night held them both as the fire burned steady. The journey ahead was still unknown, but the present moment felt right. Part 2 ended with calm, warmth, and the promise of change waiting beyond the storm. The storm ended during the early hours of the morning. Snow lay deep around the cabin, smooth and bright under the quiet sky. The wind had calmed, and the land rested as if it had taken a long breath. Inside the cabin, the fire still burned softly. Tom woke to the sound of birds outside. It was rare in winter, and the sound felt hopeful. He rose slowly and looked around. Asha was already awake. She sat near the door, tying her boots with care. Her movements were steady and calm. Tom prepared warm water and food again. Routine gave comfort, and he believed it helped build trust. They shared breakfast in silence. The quiet felt natural now, no longer strange. After eating, Tom opened the door and stepped outside. Cold air filled his lungs. The world looked new, covered in clean snow. He checked the path toward the hills and the river. Travel would be slow but possible. Asha stepped out beside him. She studied the ground and the sky. She said the storm had passed fully and the land was safe to move across. Tom nodded. He trusted her sense of weather and space. They decided to walk together for a short distance to check the area. Tom wanted to be sure no damage had been done. Asha wanted to read the signs left by the storm. They walked slowly, leaving fresh footprints behind. The land felt wide and open. Sunlight reflected off the snow, making everything bright. As they walked, Asha spoke about her people again. She explained how elders taught patience and listening. she said. Rushing often led to mistakes. Tom listened closely. He realized that many of his own lessons were similar, learned through long days and quiet nights. They reached the frozen stream. The ice was thick and clear. Tom checked it carefully. It was safe. He filled a small container with clean ice to melt later. Asha knelt and touched the surface. She closed her eyes for a moment, as if listening. Tom did not interrupt. He had learned to respect silence. On their way back they saw animal tracks crossing the path. Asha pointed them out and explained what animal made them and when. Tom felt impressed. He had hunted for years, yet her understanding was deep and calm. Back at the cabin, Tom gathered tools to fix a loose board on the wall. Asha offered to help. She held the wood steady while Tom worked. They moved easily together, sharing small words and quiet focus. As the day passed, they talked more freely. Tom shared how he came to live alone. He spoke of choosing a quiet life close to the land. Asha shared how community shaped her and how separation felt heavy but not empty. She said distance could teach new lessons. Tom agreed. He felt that meeting her had already taught him to see familiar land with new eyes. In the afternoon, Tom prepared for another short trip. He needed to check a trap placed far from the cabin before winter. Asha asked to come along. Tom agreed without hesitation. They traveled carefully through the snow. The sky stayed clear. The walk took time, but neither rushed. Along the way, Asha showed Tom safe paths between rocks and trees. Tom pointed out landmarks he used for navigation. When they reached the trap, they found it empty. Tom smiled lightly. He said not every trip brought what was expected. Asha nodded and said the journey itself carried value. On their return, the sun began to lower. The light turned golden against the snow. Tom felt a quiet joy. He realized he no longer felt alone on the land. Back at the cabin, Tom prepared a stronger fire. Asha cleaned snow from their boots and placed them near the warmth. The cabin filled with light and comfort. That evening, Tom brought out a small wooden box. Inside were a few simple decorations he used each Christmas: a carved star, a ribbon, and a small bell. He placed them carefully near the window. Asha watched with interest. She asked about the meaning. Tom explained how Christmas reminded him of kindness and hope, even in hard times. Asha listened and said every culture carried moments of reflection and giving. They shared soup again and spoke about the future, not plans, but thoughts. Asha said she would continue her journey once she felt ready. Tom said the cabin would remain open until then. Night came gently. The sky filled with stars. Tom stepped outside to look. Asha joined him. They stood side by side, looking upward. The cold air felt sharp but clean. Asha said the stars reminded her that paths crossed and separated for reasons unseen. Tom agreed. He felt thankful for the meeting that had changed his winter. Before resting, Asha spoke again. She repeated the words she had spoken before. She said, not rushing, allowed understanding to grow. Tom smiled softly. Inside the cabin, the fire burned steady. The land rested. Two lives moved forward together for a time, shaped by patience and respect. Part 3 ended with quiet trust, shared purpose, and the sense that the journey ahead would bring deeper meaning than either had expected. The next morning arrived with clear light and calm air. Snow still covered the land, but the sky showed a soft blue color. The world felt open again after days of storm and silence. Inside the cabin, Tom and Asha prepared for the day with quiet focus. Tom checked his supplies and counted the food left. He knew Christmas was very close now. Asha watched him and understood his thoughts without many words. She said the land seemed ready for movement. She felt it was time to continue her journey soon. Tom listened carefully. He respected her choice. He said she was welcome to stay until she felt fully ready. Asha thanked him. She said staying too long without purpose could weaken the spirit. Tom nodded and understood her meaning. They spent the morning working together. Tom repaired a broken fence post near the cabin. Asha helped by clearing snow and holding tools. Their movements felt natural, as if they had worked together for years. They spoke about small things like weather signs and animal habits. As the sun rose higher, Tom suggested a walk to a nearby ridge. From there the land could be seen clearly for many miles. Asha agreed. She said seeing far helped the mind prepare for travel. They walked slowly, choosing careful steps on the snow. The air felt fresh. Birds flew low across the trees. When they reached the ridge, the view opened wide. Hills, trees, and frozen streams stretched across the land. Asha stood still and looked carefully in every direction. She said the land was calm and safe for travel. She could sense no danger. Tom felt relief hearing her words. They sat on a large rock and rested. Tom spoke about his past again. He shared how he once thought strength meant standing alone. Living quietly had taught him that strength also came from understanding others. Asha listened closely. She shared her own thoughts. She said community gave strength, but solitude taught balance. She believed both were needed for a full life. The wind moved gently across the ridge. Snow sparkled under the sunlight. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence felt deep and meaningful. On the way back to the cabin, they noticed fresh tracks in the snow. Human tracks, larger and heavier. Tom stopped and looked carefully. Few people traveled this far, especially near winter holidays. Asha studied the tracks. She said they were not new, but not old either. Someone had passed through within the last day. Tom felt alert but not afraid. They returned to the cabin and secured the door. Tom checked his tools and supplies again. He believed being prepared brought peace. Asha agreed. Afternoon arrived. Tom began preparing a small Christmas meal. It was simple but meaningful. He cooked soup and warmed bread. He placed the wooden star near the fire again. Asha watched with interest. She said ceremonies and traditions helped people remember who they were. Tom smiled and said even small acts could hold great meaning. They shared the meal quietly. The warmth of the food filled the cabin. Outside, the land stayed calm. Later, Tom showed Asha a map he had drawn of the area. It marked rivers, hills, and safe paths. Asha studied it carefully. She said it would help her find her way back toward familiar land. Tom offered to walk with her part of the way when she decided to leave. Asha accepted the offer with gratitude. She said walking together honored the time they had shared. As evening approached, the sky turned soft shades of orange and gray. Tom lit the lantern. The cabin filled with gentle light. They spoke about the meaning of choice. Asha said paths chosen with patience led to clearer outcomes. Tom agreed. He felt that rushing often closed doors rather than opening them. That night, Tom stepped outside alone for a moment. He looked at the stars and thought about how his Christmas had changed. He had gone hunting for food but had found connection instead. Inside, Asha prepared her belongings. She moved carefully, not in a hurry. She believed readiness came from calm decisions. When Tom returned, they sat near the fire again. Asha spoke softly. She said meeting Tom had reminded her that kindness could be found in unexpected places. Tom replied that meeting her had changed how he saw the land and himself. They agreed that the next day would be the time to begin walking toward her path. The decision felt right. The fire burned low as night deepened. Snow rested quietly outside. Inside the cabin there was no fear or doubt, only understanding. Part 4 closed with a sense of preparation and respect. Two lives stood at the edge of change, guided by patience, shared strength, and the quiet wisdom of the land. The final morning arrived quietly. The sky was clear, and the cold felt gentle instead of sharp. Snow rested firmly on the land, untouched and bright. Inside the cabin, Tom woke early and prepared for the day with steady hands. He felt calm, though he knew change was coming. Asha rose soon after. She folded her blanket and tied her bag with care. Her face showed focus, not sadness. She believed that every path had its time. Tom respected that belief. They shared a simple breakfast: bread, warm water, and a small portion of soup. The meal felt meaningful, even without many words. Outside, the land waited. After eating, Tom checked Ben and prepared him for travel. Asha stepped outside and looked at the horizon. She studied the light, the wind, and the shape of the land. She said the day was good for walking. Tom locked the cabin and placed the wooden star inside near the window. He knew he would return later, but leaving now felt right. He walked beside Asha as they started down the path away from the cabin. They moved slowly, allowing the land to guide their steps. Snow crunched under their boots. Ben followed calmly behind. The path led toward open ground where hills met the sky. As they walked, Tom spoke about Christmas. He said it was a time when people remembered kindness and shared warmth. Asha listened and said every people had days meant to honor connection and gratitude. She believed intention mattered more than form. They reached a crossing where two paths separated. One led toward Tom's familiar land. The other stretched toward distant hills and rivers where Asha believed her people traveled. They stopped there and stood quietly. The moment felt full, not heavy. Tom offered Asha the map he had drawn. She accepted it with respect and thanked him. She said it would help guide her steps until she found familiar signs. Tom then removed a small charm from his pocket. It was carved from wood, shaped like a simple bird. He said it reminded him of freedom and direction. He offered it to Asha as a gift of goodwill. Asha accepted the charm and held it carefully. She said gifts carried meaning beyond their shape. She then reached into her bag and took out a woven band. The colors were calm and natural. She placed it gently in Tom's hand. She said it represented patience and balance. They shared a moment of silence. The wind moved softly around them. Snow reflected the light of the morning. Asha spoke first. She said paths crossed for reasons not always known. She believed their meeting had brought learning to both of them. Tom nodded and said he felt the same. He had gone hunting for food, but had found understanding instead. Tom offered to walk further with her, but Asha declined kindly. She said this part of the journey was hers alone. She felt ready. They stood facing each other. Tom wished her safety and strength. Asha wished him peace and clarity. Neither rushed the farewell. Asha turned and began walking toward the distant hills. Her steps were steady and sure. Tom watched until she became smaller against the wide land. He felt no regret, only gratitude. After some time, Tom turned back toward his cabin. The path felt different now. The land seemed wider, but also closer. He understood it better. When he reached the cabin, the sun was higher. Light filled the small space. Tom started a fire and sat near it. He held the woven band and thought about the lessons he had learned. Christmas arrived quietly that evening. Tom prepared a simple meal and placed the wooden star near the window again. He did not feel alone. He felt connected to the land and to the meaning that had shaped his season. Outside, snow rested peacefully. The land remained patient and strong. Far away, Asha walked with calm purpose. She followed signs in the land and trusted her path. She carried the wooden bird close, reminding her of shared kindness. The world continued its steady rhythm. Lives moved forward, changed but grounded. The story ended not with an ending but with understanding. Patience had guided each step, respect had shaped every choice, and Christmas had brought more than expected. The land watched quietly as two paths moved forward, each carrying a part of the other within them.